Welcome to Masters in Travel and our client experience series. This month, Brianna and I will be diving into every aspect of client experience, why we think that it's not only an important element of your business, but we feel that it is a crucial element of your business and should not be overlooked. Brianna, hey, how's it going?
It's going. It's going. I'm excited for this month of conversation and kind of just all the different ways we're going to tackle client experience because it can sound like a buzzword and something we just throw around is like, oh, yeah, of course, we have a client experience because we have clients and we have an
And they
experience.
experienced something.
Yeah. But, really taking the time to deep dive into what it is and why it matters is, I think, going to be very important for people at different stages of their business to realize kind of like what's going on. For newer advisors, it's really going to be like, what am I developing on the ground level? Like, what is my foundation here? How am I going to build a strong foundation and go from there? And then for seasoned advisors and people who have been doing this for a while, it's really taking a critical look at what they do and why they do it, because maybe there's some of us who have never taken the time to really think this through, and we might be doing some of it like subconsciously, because yeah, some of it will come subconsciously. It's not kind of like we just were forced into this business and we just don't know how we ever got into planning
Right.
travel. There's always kind of that underlying why, but really being able to define it and to understand why we do what we do, and to see client experience for what it is and also how we can make it better. That's how we
Right.
improve, that's how we grow. And so I think for people who have been doing this for a while, they are going to get so much out of these conversations as well, because it's going to be an opportunity for them to just really kind of audit their business and their quote unquote client experience and see how they can make it better. So I think it's going to be good for all of us.
Yeah, I think that even as we were reading, doing some research and reading a lot of different articles, and like there's so much, if you just Google client experience, it's actually overwhelming the amount of information that's coming back at you. And as we were sifting through all of it, there were a few key articles that really kind of made me stop and be like, I think that I have a lot of room for improvement. I know I'm not flying by the seat of my pants. I definitely have some sort of a client experience and I know why I do what I do. But I found multiple areas for improvement, not just in how I execute the client experience, but also how I talk about my business and how I develop relationships with customers and with clients. And so I'm glad you mentioned that. I think that this is a process and something that we can look into from start to finish. And we should be thinking through it frequently and often. It's not something like a set it and forget it type of component of our business.
Absolutely not.
Um, so, something that kept coming up time and time again, which of course I hated, was this very blurry line between client experience and brand experience.
Mm.
And I remember in our master hour call, I think it was in March, with our guest that who came on to talk to us about building a client experience, I'm pretty sure she actually said client experience is brand experience and brand experience is client experience. And they are not the same, but they overlap a lot. And I think that they can actually be confused a little bit. And so I'm curious to know, as you are the resident brand expert,
Shoot.
how do you how do you see the similarities and the differences with client experience and brand experience? Like how do they overlap, but then how are they very distinct in your mind?
Yeah, so I think probably what would be helpful is to begin with a little bit of like definition. So, kind of, we're all talking about the same thing or thinking about the same thing. And so, because we're talking specifically about client experience for these next few weeks, the definition for me of client experience is really encompassing every interaction a client has with your business, from the first contact, to post trip follow up. That's their client experience. That is everything, and it encompasses so much, which is, it's not relegated to just, when they're on the trip. It's not relegated to just, you talking to them on the phone, a discovery call. It literally is every point of interaction from
Hmm.
beginning to end, A to Z. And so that is client experience. Um, For when you're talking about brand experience, it really is a bit of a broader concept in that a brand experience is going to encompass every interaction that a client has with your brand. And so this would be the differentiator, is that they could have an interaction with your brand without being a client, right? So
Right.
that's the marketing touch points, the ways that they just see and experience your brand with when they're in the decision making process of if they want to be a client, if this is something
Maybe
for
just
them.
going to your website and you don't
Yeah,
even,
checking you
you're not
out. That is
aware. Mm,
all of the ways that you are communicating what your brand experience is. And that is going to hopefully very much overlap with the experience they have being your client. And so
hopefully.
those, yeah, hopefully.
I
So
don't think mine does.
and that's the really cool and key part of like understanding how your brand experience and your client experience should really mirror each other and should really be interconnected. So this interconnectedness of brand experience and client experience means that you understand your brand experience is that precursor to what the client experience should and could be, and it's going to shape their perceptions of what they're going to experience if they are a client of yours, and before they ever actually engage with you and your services. And then once they
Right.
do engage with you and your services, they should be like, you know what? This is what I expected. This is what she was
Yes.
showing me was going to be the experience I was going to have. That experience with her brand that I have, it now is the experience that I actually get to have as her client. So I think that those are really the interconnectedness of brand experience and client
Hmm.
experience, and how the brand experience is that precursor that we need to think through and really kind of make sure is what we want it to be, so that we're not playing a bait and switch. And also we're very clear and we know what we're putting forth, and our clients are like, we get it, we want it, and then when they experience it, they're like, yep, that lines up.
Exactly.
So I
Exactly.
think
I think
that that kind of hand in
the key
hand.
thing you mentioned there is that it sets up expectations.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm not going to come up with a good example on the fly here, but if you are setting expectations on your website and on social media that you um, deliver your itineraries in a certain way, that you are working with specific partners, that you only work in certain regions of the world, like whatever expectations you're setting up before anybody can reach out with you, if there's any sort of a disconnect when they do reach out to you, they engage your services, they receive their first proposal, and then that's totally different from what they were expecting, that's actually going to diminish what happens next in terms of like, will they work with you again in the future? Will they recommend your services? Things like this. So maybe a better example is if you are promising like personalized or like customized experiences that are very
Mhm.
personalized to your clients.
Mhm.
Or if you talk about how if ever in your marketing or on your website or social media, if you talk about how you always like to offer 2 or 3 options for hotels in each city or 2 or 3 cruise ship options, just to like advise and guide people through the process. If that's ever a part of your branding or how you talk about the experience of working with you, but then clients engage your services and they come in and they don't see those options, or they feel like the experiences that are included in the proposal are things that they could have booked themselves, or they're not really quite sure how those experiences are personal or how they're unique, then there's going to start to be that disconnect of, well, wait a second, we wanted to engage your services because we thought this is what we were getting, but now we're not getting that over here. And while that might disrupt the experience in the moment, but it might not. People might just let it go through, and if it seems okay. But I think they're less likely to come back to you. They're less likely to refer business to you because they don't feel like they fully got what they thought they were going to get when they engaged your services, which I
Yeah.
think is another reason why brand experience and client experience are so deeply intertwined.
Right. 100%. And I think the another important thing that you did touch on right there is that literally is when we're saying like why this matters or what the importance is because what you say that you do and then following up with what you say you're going to do is a differentiator in a competitive market, right? It is the
Yes.
choice that they're making to choose your service over another service, over doing it themselves, over that online travel agency, whatever the case may be. We're trying to differentiate ourselves, and that's what client experience can do. And so this is going to be the thing that fosters client loyalty. This is going to be the thing that drives positive word of mouth referrals, which is all about how we grow our businesses. And so client experience, and then therefore brand experience, is the thing that sets your business up for success, to grow and to scale and to differentiate itself in the market.
So I think maybe one of the reasons why I've always found the branding component of this a little bit challenging is because any research that you do, and I'm sitting here looking at two Forbes articles specifically that I feel are really fabulous articles, but they're all saying brand first, brand first, brand first. And sometimes what we say as new business owners, and this is actually part of our conversation with Cynthia in our February Master Hour, who came to talk to us about branding, is sometimes when you're starting a business, you just do what you can with what you have. And that's not a full on brand strat, like bringing in a brand strategy expert and having a beautiful website and the logo and everything, because you've just got to figure out what you're doing and make sure that what you want to offer is what clients want. And so sometimes you can't ignore that branding, but you kind of have to like step over it to just get your feet wet, which is the client experience, and then come back to the brand experience once you've kind of tested the waters a little bit. And I think that what I have done and what I see a lot of business owners and travel advisors doing is we sidestep the brand experience at the beginning and then we don't come back to it. And I think that's the big mistake, because when we are brand new, we will take any business that comes in, right? Anyone who wants to work with us, who is willing to trust us and hand over their trip planning to us, we say yes. And then we become this customer centric business owner. Like, we are here for our customers. We don't want a niche. We don't want to focus on a destination. We don't want to focus on a trip type. We want to focus on our clients. I'm making fun of myself here because this is what I say. No, I just focus on my clients. I plan travel all over the world. It's great, guys. But what happens is that if we don't have a purpose clearly defined in our minds and in our experience about why we do what we do, then we start bending to what our clients want and what our clients are asking for, which means that little by little, our clients are driving the bus.
And they've defined our brand. And
They've
here's the
defined
thing,
our brand.
the thing, yeah, that's a really good point. And here's the thing that, like, where probably, yes, a lot of people do get, you just get too far down the road and you're like, how did I get here? Right. Because
Yes.
when you do start, yes. And this is not to say that this is not going to, if you are newer and this is your experience, you are not alone in this. And kind of like there is a little bit of like, we go through it, like where there's a trip, I will plan it. We have all been there and we've all done that to varying degrees. I would say that even though that is going to be the case and to some degree, when you start your business, you still have to know why the heck are you starting a travel business? Why are you doing this and not this? Like, what is
In
your passion?
addition to
Yeah.
wanting to make money.
In addition to wanting to make money.
That's
Because yes,
assumed.
this is, we're all, most of us, and I hope that anybody that's listening to this podcast would be like, yes, I am not treating this as a hobby. I'm not doing this because I have extra time between, school, soccer pickup, what have you. I really do have a passion for this. This is why, this is who I want to help. This is how I think I have a unique perspective that I can bring to this business and to this industry, whatever the case may be, your purpose and your passion that you started this business with. And when you are just kind of like, what's the word? Chopping. There's a phrase and I can't think of it. Whatever. Okay,
Every
fine.
podcast with Brianna has a phrase.
I'm good for some phrases. What was I even trying to say? Oh, yes. So you do things, and even though that might shift because you have this idea, here's what I'm passionate about, here's where I want to help people, and you start your business and you start down that road, and then it is true, you might start to do a bit of that and be like, you know what? I'm pivoting a little bit, or I'm shifting. I thought I would love it this way, but this is what I want. This is actually what really lights me up. And that's totally fine. That's part of the process as well. But when you're not doing the defining on your end, even
Yeah.
if you do accept other clients, other type trips or whatever, but if you are not the
Sure.
one driving the conversation, driving the messaging, and you are accepting anything from clients, then of course what they're coming to you for is what they've decided their needs are, and you haven't defined what you're good at, what you promise to deliver on. And so the expectation isn't there. Like they don't even know what the expectation is. So then they're now going to create one for themselves. Well, what I need is to save money, or what I need is the cheapest whatever, or what I need is somebody to be available 24/7. They're now driving that messaging because you haven't said it, and you haven't defined it, and you haven't put it out there. And so
Yep.
they're going to come to you, and then you're going to try to fulfill those needs, and you just find yourself in a hamster wheel because
That's on a real quick path to burnout.
path to
Real
burn.
quick. And also just gets us real quick to that phase of like, I don't even know if I like this anymore. How did I get here? And so let's just like stop on this very like dire road we're going down and like turn back around. This is,
We have
I
clients.
think that so many of us have experienced that. And so this is like, we're speaking from reality. I'm speaking from experience that I let clients kind of drive the way for too long. And that's because I don't know that I can say that I didn't know what my purpose was. I think I knew what my purpose was. And I can still articulate that now. The disconnect for me is that I didn't connect the dots between my purpose and the experience that I was providing and the way that I talked about my business. So it's like I did the work of like, I know what my purpose is. I know it in my head, but I didn't infuse it through the actual client experience that I'm offering. And I didn't infuse it into the messaging that was coming from me and my business. And that's where the disconnect is still currently for me.
Mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So some people might need to do the work to actually sit down and think, what is the purpose of my business? Why did I start this business in the first place? What drove me to do this? And it's in addition to being able to work from home, having the freedom and flexibility of being our own boss, being able to make money on our own terms. Like all of that is assumed because we are entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
The purpose that we are driving toward and looking for right now is the actual like the passion. Like cuz we could have started a coffee shop, we could have started a dog walking service, we could have, opened up a clothing boutique, but we didn't. We started a travel business. So there's got to be something, some reason, some purpose, some why underneath all the layers of what actually drove us to start this business. And I think that that's what everybody needs to kind of take a moment and pause and either figure it out if you don't know the answer to that question, or if you do know the answer to that question, your next test is how are you infusing that through your client experience?
Right.
And
Right.
are
There's
you?
there's like a in this first brand experience part, I see it as kind of like a three-pronged approach. It's what your business stands for and its purpose. It's your clients' pain points and like the thing that you're solving, right? And so it's all three of these things. And if you're missing your purpose, if you're missing the pain points that you say you are addressing, if you're missing what your clients really want, then what happens is like the needs and like the ask, that's what drives the business. And the the reason why you were so lit up and so excited to have this type of business, to be in this industry, to fulfill these dreams, all of those things, it gets lost
It's
because
lost.
now you're an order taker, so to speak, a lot of the time.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm looking at this Forbes article now that we will link in the show notes. And it specifically says that brand experience and client experience can't be successful one without the other. Like you have to have both. And I think that this is really what we're trying to drive home. First things first, it talks about focus on how people feel.
Mm.
So there is a component to our client experience that is filling out our form, getting on a call with us, getting that first proposal, getting emails from us that are timely and detailed and full of the answering questions before they have them. There are all these components that I think we've talked about a lot in the past, but how does everything that we do, how does it make them feel?
Hmm. Because that's the only thing that they actually remember.
That's the only thing they remember.
What is my Simon Sinek quote? Is it Simon Sinek? No, it is. What's the other brand
Maya
guy?
Angelou.
No, but I'm thinking of somebody else.
While you're thinking of that, Maya Angelou said, because it's in the Forbes article, I've
Okay, okay,
learned
okay.
that people, no, I don't remember quotes off the top of my head. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I think that this is true. And I think that this is extremely important when we think about client experience. How does every component of your client experience make someone feel? And before you think about how it makes them feel, answer the question of how you want it to make them feel.
Yes, exactly. I was thinking of my friend Seth Godin, so I wasn't like totally
Not
off.
the other S, not
Yeah.
Simon, Seth.
But of course, he is a brand guru as well. And so, like, the thing that I was thinking about that he says is that your brand is a set of expectations, memories, stories, and relationships that, taken together, account for a consumer's decision to choose one product or service over another. And so, really, it is everything that happens that gives them that feeling. And that's why they choose you versus choosing them. If you're not giving them anything to feel, they might choose you that initial time, but there's nothing that gets them there's no loyalty there because you haven't made them feel anything. So it was like, it was fine, but they're not going to come back for that.
So, this is a bit of a personal anecdote, but I feel like it very much is about how you feel. So, my one of my closest friends here in Des Moines is a photographer, but she also has a photography team. And so sometimes when we're getting family photos, they do this really great thing throughout the year where they do just like 15-minute photo shoots where it's like you put on the clothes, you show up, snap, snap, snap. They send you 20 photos a few days later. You choose the couple that you want, you change the background on your phone. It's fabulous. Like
Wonderful.
it doesn't, I love that they do it in like 15-minute time slots and they're all back to back. So like people are moving through because then it just feels like less stress and pressure of like we have an hour with this photographer and we need outfits. It's not like that. It's like show up, smile, off to
Perfect.
brunch kind of thing.
Yes.
Well, sometimes it works out that I can like sign up for a slot with my friend, and other times based on the date or the location that I want to do or the time or whatever it is, we're signing up with photographers from her team.
Mm.
And her team, one of the other photographers, does not make me feel comfortable being photographed the way
Mm.
that my friend does.
Mm.
The end product of the actual photographs are identical.
Right.
You can't look at all the final products of the photographs and say, well, that one was clearly taken by this photographer and this inferior photo was taken by this other photographer. The end product is exactly the same. But the way that I experience that mini photo shoot
Mm-hmm.
and
Different.
the way that I experience their brand and their service is very, very different. And so I don't recommend that photographer. I don't sign up for those shoots unless I really want that photo and there's no other choice kind of
Right.
thing. Like it's
Right.
not my preferred. And so if you really think about how your client experience makes people feel, this is what's going to set you apart as a business owner. But
Mm-hmm.
more importantly, this is what's going to drive people to want to continue to return to you, to plan more trips, and to refer business to you because of how you make them feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that you should take a step back and like, don't worry about how you make people feel. Take a step back and answer the question for yourself. How do you want people to feel?
Right.
I don't know. Have you ever thought about this? Like, how do you want people to feel going through the experience of working with Milk and Honey Travels?
Yeah. I mean, I think I would say, like, have I thought about this? I hope the answer is yes. But like, I feel also a little bit on the
If
spot
not, I'm
now.
putting you on the
Yeah,
spot.
I know. So I would say that I really want my clients to feel seen. I want them to feel important and special. And I want them to feel like at ease. Like
Yeah.
I want people to feel like once they've kind of like interacted with our brand, once we've had a conversation, like they just feel like, like I can relax. I can kind of like stop stressing. I can kind of let go of all this, like, am I doing the right thing? Did I look up the right hotel? Am I going to do the right like activity? Like they just feel like she's got it. Like this is so
Exactly.
like peaceful and like stressless. Stressless?
Hmm.
Is
Stress
that a word?
free,
Stress free.
maybe.
um, that's like my goal. And when I can tell
Yes.
that like, oh, great, like this is where they're at. This is then that's the best feeling. That's in alignment. And conversely, I can tell you when I know that somebody has not, they don't get that vibe, like, or they're not getting that, and they're still kind of, well, what about this? Well, guess like I'm they got their own spreadsheets out. They're doing
Oh,
the
yep.
things. Then
I
I'm
was going to
like,
ask you.
this is what feels very misaligned.
Yeah.
And like I know that I'm still going to give you the same experience, but you're not
Yes.
receiving it in the right way, and you're not trusting. And so your experience, because you don't feel how I'm really hoping you will feel, is not going to be what I hope it to be. Even though the outcome and the trip that we've planned and the everything we put together could be exactly the same,
Yes.
the experience they have is going to be different. And I just know when things aren't aligned like that, it's like they might go on the trip and they might be like, yeah, fine, nothing bad happened. You know what I mean? But like they're
Well,
not coming back.
what's interesting is that I've had this recently, and it's like, I know for you and I that the client experience that we offered to these clients who showed up with their own spreadsheets and 65 million questions, we did the same thing for them as we did all the other people,
Right.
all the other clients. So I'm not necessarily sure that I know what the disconnect is there, but it is very true that the experience that we want to offer and how we want clients to feel going through our client experience and our service, it's not going to be the same for everybody. Not everybody's going to experience it similarly. All the more reason that we need to talk about what we do and why we do it and who we do it for upfront leading in. And I think that this is where I've dropped the ball, is like I have so many referrals now that nobody's coming in because they had an experience of my brand before reaching out to me.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
actually had no experience in my brand before reaching out to me.
Yeah.
They're just reaching out because they trust someone who said they should.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is a sticky point. That also is why I find such like not a good experience when if you've ever done kind of like the destination wedding thing or like some sort of group experience where, you know, like there's the one person who's just like your cheerleader, and then you got to interact with these other people who are like, who the F are you? And
Yep.
what's going on? And why am I just like trusting you with all these things? And I don't even know, like, there's no relationship there. There's no buy in. And it's like, I don't even know what you value. I don't even know what's important to you. And it's not actually what I offer. Like you would be better
Right.
off at Costco. That's what's going to make you happy. And I'm trying to force a round peg through a square hole here because we're missing each other. What I offer is not what you want.
Yeah.
And I find that a lot when like that's when the people come in through like this different avenue of like they haven't made the choice for themselves that this is a good fit, and they haven't
Sure.
experienced the brand in any other way, and it's kind of like, you know, forced upon
Hmm.
them in some way. It's often a struggle.
Yep. No, yeah, no, I agree. And for the people who do plan like weddings and groups and things like this on a regular basis, I think you've all got some special magic that Brianna and I don't, because you figured out how to make that work both for you and
And like
clients.
it, yeah.
And yeah, yeah. I think we all have our own magic in just different ways. So I think a lot of the way that I would describe how I want my clients to feel is pretty similar. I want them to feel taken care of in a way that they're just like, that it leads to trust of like, Whitney's got this, we can relax, we know everything's being taken care of, but also not just taken care of like boxes are ticked, that they also feel reassured and trust that the experience is going to be fully catered to them and what
Yeah.
their travel style is and what they like. And so that all those emotions cannot be taken for granted. And so I think in next week and the following week's episode, we'll talk more about like, okay, what do you actually do in your client experience to make sure that you are eliciting those emotions? Because just saying that you want your clients to feel a certain way going through your experience doesn't mean it's just automatically going to happen.
Yeah, it's not
Right.
that
Then you
easy.
have to take it a step further and be like, okay, I want them to feel seen and heard. How do I do that? I want them to feel relaxed and like, whoo, Brianna's got this, Whitney's got this. How do we do that? Right. So then there's the execution piece that we'll get into later. But I think this is a big part of client experience that I didn't think through at the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing that they talk about in this Forbes article is to be purpose centric. And this is the idea of going back to, why did you start this business?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you in the travel industry? Why are you a travel advisor? What is it like? And I think that your purpose is probably different than my purpose. And that's how it should be. And that's actually what starts to separate everybody who plans travel.
And also, it's the thing that, like, because people can like sniff out authenticity, right? It's kind of why like copycats often fall flat on their face. It's like they see that something worked for somebody else, or somebody else said something, and so then they say the same thing, or somebody else says they promised this, so they're going to say they promised this, but it isn't authentic because it didn't come from them, and they don't even, who knows if they even believe it. And then it's like, well, wait, why did it work for them and not for them? It's because it's not, you're not being your authentic self, and people can smell that out. Like, that's
Yep.
why it's really important to know your true purpose for yourself, not to take somebody else's or try to, copy what somebody else is doing because it seems like it's working for them, so maybe it can work for you too. You really have to figure out, what is it that rings true for me, and how can I speak from that place, because people are smarter than that, and they're going to be attracted to, the right people will be attracted to who you really are and what really matters to you.
That's what I was going to say, is if you know your purpose and why you started your business, and then you infuse that through your client experience, but you also let that topple over into your brand experience of how you talk about things on social media, how you talk about things in a newsletter, then that's going, just like you said, that's going to attract the clients to you who are looking for what you offer.
Mm-hmm.
So an example, I started taking steps towards starting my travel business when I was backpacking, and I had been backpacking for 5 years or so, on and off, not consecutively. And I was like, no. I think the longest stretch I ever made was like truly out of a backpack was 6 months. And I was like, this, people who are like truly in a backpack for like a year or two, like, not for me. I was like, I need a kitchen, I need a gym, I need a bed. I really learned how much I value like routine and stability. But I was in Indonesia, Lonely Planet in hand, looking up at this beautiful temple, trying to read the description of the temple out of the Lonely Planet. And at some point, I just like threw the book in my backpack, and I was like, this is stupid. Like, the temple is beautiful, but I am tired of reading these tiny little paragraphs out of a book telling me why I should be looking at this. This is not engaging. I want to talk to a human. I want to actually learn about what I'm looking at. I'm tired of just looking at beautiful things, but not having any context as to why they are here and why they are important and why I should be visiting this. Because I just finally got to that point that it's like, I'm no longer satisfied by ticking the box saying I saw that thing at that place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I was, in these tiny little buses going on all of these tours and these hikes and everything. But it was always just like, get off the bus, hike up there, come back. The bus leaves in an hour. I was just like I got to a point that those experiences it was no longer fulfilling for me. And I just had this moment, having no idea that being a travel advisor was a thing or that I wanted to work in the travel industry. But I had this moment as a traveler that was like, there's got to be a better way to experience these incredible destinations. There's got to be a better way to learn about these destinations, to have more authentic experiences, to contribute back into the local communities, to have a good guide who can really take you around and show you, all the places, but to really like leave you with something when you leave here, rather than just a checklist of like, well, saw Bali, got attacked by the monkeys in the monkey forest, went to that volcano that was actually pretty dangerous. No one should really be hiking there. Glad I survived. Like I was just like done with those experiences. And so you can see that now in the trips that I plan, that I am doing everything I can to scour the options and to uncover the authenticity of a destination. if anything sniffs like cookie cutter, I'm like, get it out of here. This isn't going to cut it, like
Right.
I'm looking for guides. I'm looking for boutique hotels. I'm looking for really incredible dining experiences. I'm looking for unique experiences to engage with the local community and the local artisans and all this kind of stuff. And so there is nothing more disheartening to me than when I deliver on that as my purpose, because that is, if you come to me, that's what you're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
And then clients come back from a proposal and they're like, yeah, we're not really interested in like these experiences, or like, we don't really want like a scheduled day. We just kind of want to have free time to walk around on our own. Like, can we just get tickets to that place when we get there? And like, these hotels that you offered are beautiful, but like, I have like a Marriott loyalty number. So can we book this other one? Like, there is no other way for you to crush my day, probably my whole week, than if I get an email like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if and when that happens, and it's been a long time since that happened a lot early on in my business, that's my fault.
Right. Right.
Because
what did you not say that
exactly
made them think that like, hey, we should use Whitney for this trip?
Exactly.
All we
I
want
know my
is
purpose.
A cookie cutter box hotel and some leisure time.
Yeah. You don't need a travel agent.
Right. You don't need the right call here.
You just need the Marriott app, honestly. And maybe Expedia to book a flight. But like, I know my purpose, but I haven't gone the extra step to infuse that. Not only it's infused in my client experience a little bit, because that's what I'm delivering, but it's not infused into my messaging. Mm-hmm. And so people are getting that without necessarily understanding that that's what they came to me for. And so if that's what you like, great. But if it's not what you like, then it's going to feel super misaligned and it's not going to work out. And so I think that this is what some of these articles and these exercises have helped me kind of click into. It's like, oh, I actually know how I want people to feel and I know what my purpose is, but I haven't gone the extra step to make sure that other people know that, to ensure that I'm attracting the right clientele into my business and into my experience.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And also kind of like that kind of goes in line too, in just like as the leader of your business, and even if you are just doing it solo right now, how you showcase that as the face of your business. We all, I'm assuming, are on some level a what's the word? A personal brand. It just kind of works out that way. None of us are running some big faceless corporate type of travel business where the person of us doesn't shine through or shouldn't shine through our brand. And so it's also us living out that thing that we say, that's in our messaging, that's whatever, that people can see that like, oh wow, no, like this is in alignment with who Whitney is, or this is in alignment with who Brianna is. Like she talks about like how important this is. And then when I see her traveling or when she's talking about her latest trip, I also see that within her own experiences as well. It is not like, I'm not talking about how important this luxury hotel is and staying in a hostel. Like that would be out of alignment.
Yeah. And I think that, sorry for all the photography examples here, but I think a lot about like when I was looking for a wedding photographer, I think about like, if you put 5 travel advisors all side by side, all 5-star reviews, referred from close friends, like let's just assume the best. How can a client identify that you're the best one for them? Can they pick you out of a lineup and say, that one, I want to work with that one? Not because you're better than the others.
Right.
But because you're more aligned with what they are looking for. What I think it makes me think of like when you are looking for a photographer, specifically a wedding photographer, because I think this is a really big decision. And for myself, we looked through like 65 million portfolios of different photographers. And I remember constantly saying, all of these photographers are fabulous. This isn't a question of like who's good and who's bad. It's a question of whose style is what I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. So some photographers are super like posed portraiture type of photographers. Others are super like documentarian, journalistic, very candid nothings post,
Mm-hmm.
and then some use some like filtering and like different like effects on the photos. Some, like they all have a different style. And ultimately, who we went with, everyone was fabulous. But it was like this photographer aligns with what I have in mind of how I would like to remember our wedding day.
And I would also even almost take it a step further with something like that, because I also think when you get a sense and a vibe of who someone is, that also plays a part in kind of like your overall experience. Like, if you're going to be with somebody all day on the most important day of your life and you don't vibe with them, or they feel like it's very, like, personality wise, it's just not a good fit. Like, I want somebody who makes me feel comfortable. If they're going to be taking my photo and with me all day on my most important day, like, do they make me feel relaxed? Do they make me feel comfortable? Do they get me to show up in front of the camera as my most relaxed self so that the photos are going to look amazing? If I can get that from you, that like, oh my gosh, we really connect, we really vibe, like I feel comfortable with you, and this other person, I don't feel that, but their photos are just as good, I'm going with the person that like makes me feel comfortable also. So I think even to down to the personality of how you align with somebody is important as well.
Yep. So we've left you with two really important things to think about, both how you want clients to feel when they're working with you and what your purpose is. Like, aside from making money, working for yourself, putting food on the table, going on more vacations with your family, aside from all of that money, business, owning your time kind of stuff, what is your actual purpose? What drove you to start this business? And making sure that you can really articulate that.
Mm-hmm.
And to help answer some of these questions, we have another link we'll include in the show notes. I found this really fabulous Mad Lib exercise from Kay Putnam.
Mm.
And in reading through it, I just felt like her approach to asking some of these questions was something that I haven't seen elsewhere in other like client experience articles or exercises or whatnot. So the first one, the first part of the Mad Lib is, my ideal client is someone who believes
Let's go
X.
ahead. Let's just ask you these questions, and then I'm going to read the like, I'm going to read your response after we've done them all. So Whitney is going to do this Mad Lib exercise, and we're going to see how close we get to like this feeling true and authentic to her brand. Okay, my ideal client is someone who believes, what would you say? X, fill in the blank.
I feel very much put on the spot right now, but in lines with what we have been talking about, my ideal client is someone who believes that travel, that travel is a lifestyle, and that it's elevated by tapping into the most authentic local experiences.
We have other fill in the blank, so don't give me everything in the first
I know, but it's really hard to make it concise.
We can, okay, let's see if that
We'll concise this
concise.
later.
Okay. They have a desire to find what?
Unique experiences they didn't know were possible.
Okay. This is something I've learned by interacting with my ideal clients. Just give me something you've learned by interacting with your ideal clients.
That luxury is in the details, and that it's more about the personalization and the uniqueness of the experience or opportunity more than it is about the cost.
You might call them, give me 3 adjectives of these people.
That's hard. But what Kay puts here, to give you an example, is in her Mad Lib, she says you might call them action takers, driven and motivated people. I don't know if I can come up with adjectives of what I would call my clients. Here, yes, I can. You might call them curious. For sure. That's definitely one that I have come up with in previous like exercises like this. What else, Brianna? How do you describe my clients?
You might call them curious.
Discerning, I use a lot.
And
let's go with those two. Curious and discerning.
What are they not?
These adjectives are hard. They're not
Boring. They're not lame. They're not stuffy. They're not rude. They're not
This example says they're not perfectionists. I'm not sure that I have a good one for this. I feel like skip this. I feel like I'm gonna have to think about this and come back to it. I don't know what they're not. The final sentence is they value.
What do they value?
They value experiences. They value my expertise. They value. Oh, sorry. Go back to, you might call them world citizens. Curious, discerning, and world citizens. Add that to that sentence. They value authenticity. They value personalization. They value my expertise. And they value like a seamless experience.
Okay, let's see if this sounds like.
I don't know if this is very good just running through it live like this, but are you going to go next?
No. Okay, let's see if the ideal client that we're describing sounds like the type of person that Whitney wants to truly help and that is in alignment with her brand. Okay, that's the goal. So, Whitney, my ideal client is someone who believes that travel is a lifestyle and that it is elevated by tapping into the most authentic local experiences. They have a desire to find unique experiences they didn't know were possible. This is something I've learned by interacting with my ideal clients, that luxury is in the details and that it is more about the personalization and uniqueness of experience more than the cost. You might call them curious, discerning, and world citizens. They value experiences, authenticity, a seamless experience, and my expertise. I mean, we used experience quite a bit, so we might probably just need to like divvy up our word choices a little bit, but it's not bad.
Yeah. I mean, but I think, do you find these questions, like these prompts, interesting?
Yeah.
I feel like if I massage this a little bit and really work through it more, I would actually continue to, I think that like thinking about what they value, thinking about like the question of like, this is something I've learned by interacting with my ideal clients. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I've never like thought about that. So I really appreciate this exercise. I think that what we came up with on the spot is okay. I would continue to fine tune that, but to really try to start honing in on who your ideal client is, what their pain points are, and bring that together with your purpose, your why, the emotions that you want them to feel. I think this is going to start to help people really paint a true picture of what is it that we're even trying to achieve with our client experience.
Exactly. So hopefully today you just got like your appetite wet for what's to come.
Yes.
And really that you've been encouraged to put your brand's purpose at the top of this food chain and that it's all going to trickle down from here and make your client experience the best that it can be when you start here. So that was our goal for today's podcast.
And
And I hope that we achieved that.
yeah, and now that we've got these kind of high level things that we need to really be able to talk about and articulate, in the next 2 weeks, we'll talk about how we actually take the answers to those questions and we start implementing them into our client experience and making sure that it's not just something that gets stuck in our minds of like, yeah, I know my purpose, I know the emotions, but like really putting it into practice to make sure that clients are feeling that throughout as well.
Amazing. And after all of that, what we hope to do is to help you really learn how to craft your own signature client experience. And so that's what's coming up, a little bit of a hint or a clue as to what we have in store for you. I hope you guys tune into the next couple of episodes and stay curious.